Our top story tonight concerns religious freedom. It's that idea that John Travolta accidentally stumbles upon while punching a producer and yelling, "It's not a cult, it's Scientology!" And ever since Henry VIII got all guillotine happy with Thomas More, it's an idea which has stood for people being allowed to believe whatever they want and worship however they want without the government declaring religions illegal. And in Australia, that's generally sort of how things are. Like Jews are allowed not to eat bacon, Christians are allowed to celebrate Christmas while complaining that no one celebrates it anymore. And as is increasingly common, your high school acquaintance Kiara is allowed to set up market stalls offering earth crystals and spiritual readings because she spent too long in the health and well-being section of Dimmicks and now posts a lot of Facebook statuses about unlocking your chakras. But now, after the legalisation of same-sex marriage, there's concern that religious Australians won't be able to adhere to their religious beliefs in their everyday life. It's that tired argument that florists and bakers shouldn't be forced to provide services to same-sex weddings because, 30 years from now, someone's going to make a film about the decision to legalise same-sex marriage in Australia and they'll need to base the bad guys on someone. Anyway, now the government has asked Philip Ruddock to examine what protections exist for religious Australians. And there's some concern that his review might recommend a broad right to discriminate against same-sex couples. And that concern might exist because Ruddock has previously defended the Howard government's decision to withdraw a war widow's pension from a man who'd had a 20-year relationship with a World War II veteran and blocked a gay man from getting married to his partner in Europe, making him the only Attorney General to perform an intercontinental cockblock. But while we're waiting for the death-adjacent Ruddock to complete his retirement project, Liberal Senator James Paterson, a man who looks and sounds way too much like a member of Slytherin, has emerged as a key figure in this debate with his proposal for a law to protect religious freedom. And while exactly what laws he's proposing remains unclear, what is becoming clear through the examples he uses is what he perceives the threat to be to freedom of religion in Australia. So, to his examples. First, there's rugby star Israel Folau, who, if you listen to Paterson, you'd think was being forcibly renamed the occupied territory since at least the 1967 Arab-Israeli War, Falau. Falau is a member of the Assemblies of God, so, somewhat unsurprisingly, he used Instagram to comment that God's plan for gay people who didn't repent was hell. And yes, Folau copped a lot of online abuse for saying that, presumably because people feel totally justifiably let down that they can no longer look to rugby union players for leadership on the complex moral questions of our age. And after Shannon Noll blew up, pretty much the only leader they've got left now is Scotty Cam. But as an issue of religious freedom, what do we actually take from the Folau example? Well, Folau had some meetings with Rugby Australia and then nothing, really. He's still a member of the Assemblies of God, whatever that is, and he's still playing rugby union, whatever that is. Then there's Cooper's Brewery, who teamed up with the Bible Society to make a video to promote the idea that ordinary Australians could respectfully disagree about sensitive topics as long as they were drinking Coopers. Because you know how alcohol tends to be great for diffusing potentially explosive social situations. But as a result of the ad, some pubs and clubs around the country stopped serving Coopers, forcing Coopers to release a video apology with all the charm and charisma of two people who've just had a lecture on quarantine from Barnaby Joyce. Now, quite apart from the question of why a Conservative politician is suddenly concerned that people aren't drinking enough alcohol, that's not really an issue of freedom of religion. That's just a boycott. They've been around for ages, whether it's, the Olympics or Nike using sweatshops or Trump voters boycotting Netflix for being too diverse. Some people alter their consumer behaviour because they think they can change the world, and that's not annoying, it's adorable. And then lastly, there's Catholic Archbishop of Hobart, Julian Porteous, who was referred to the Australian Discrimination Commissioner after distributing a booklet called Don't Mess with Marriage. And at face value, that does sort of look like someone being taken to a tribunal for their religious beliefs. Until you discover that when Rabbi Shimon Cowan wrote a book which compared homosexuality to bestiality, said that gay people were trapped in their sexuality because of a ban on gay conversion therapy, and claimed that compounded promiscuity in male-male sexual relationships has contributed to AIDS, whilst possessiveness in lesbian relationships accounts for high levels of violence and abuse found in them, Porteous gave the book a quote for the cover describing it as a balanced, fair and courageous study of the nature of homosexuality. And you know what? I think he should be able to say that if he wants, if only so that the rest of us now know never to listen to another word Archbishop Julian Porteous ever says again. And not only do those examples show no substantive threats to religious freedom, but Senator James Paterson agrees there isn't a threat, saying he was not aware of any examples of people's religious rights being trampled or undermined since same-sex marriage was legalised, but that protections were still needed as reassurance. And it's great that Patterson is keen to protect Australia from future threats. It's a shame it's probably too late now to show him those climate change graphs, I suppose, and warn him all about fossil fuels. Oh well, I mean, at least we'll have the freedom to worship whichever volcano god offers the best chance of survival now, I suppose. So yes, the examples Patterson uses don't really support his point, but they do demonstrate a broader point. The religious freedom he cares about is pretty much exclusively Christianity, when in fact, threats to religious freedom are most commonly directed in this country at Islam, like those Gold Coast residents who objected to a mosque that would cater to 200 rather than 40 Muslims because they've seen Field of Dreams and they know what build it and they will come means. Or the men in Queensland who take cameras into mosques and yell at people in the mosque until one of them gets angry, then they film that person getting angry so that they can release a video called "Angry Muslim Can't Take a Joke plus BMX Tricks and Welding Tips." Because here's the thing, freedom of religion has to apply to everyone. And if you want to let people act the way that their faith demands they act, then guess what? You're going to have Catholics potentially refusing to serve Protestants, Jehovah's Witnesses calling Red Cross employees heathens, and yes, possibly Sharia law, which means religious conservatives face a tough choice. If the price of being able to discriminate against gays is Sharia law, is that too high a price to pay? Do they hate gays more than Muslims? And you know what? I actually can't answer that question. I think they're going to have to look deep within themselves and work out how they truly feel about that at a fundamental spiritual level, you know? And you know what? If they need help with that, I got this friend called Kiara who might be able to help, really. We'll be right back.